Hello and welcome back to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel, your source for all things Everton. My name's Thomas. I'm bringing you a very special video today. We're doing a scout report on rumoured target Zeki Celik, is I think how we decided to pronounce it. I'm joined by Jeremy Smith, French football writer and podcaster. He appears in The Guardian and French. Also, thank you very much for coming on today. How are you doing, Jeremy?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Sort of getting back used to, well, the end of the Premier League, but now back into European football. It sort of never ends.
Oh yeah, of course, because obviously Europa League and Champions League are starting now, isn't it? So obviously not something that we're going to be participating in potentially for a while. But we're just going to get straight into it here. Everton are linked with Lille right back Zeki Celik. Obviously, ongoing rumours about Gabriel. We're not going to get into him today. We don't know what's going on with that transfer. Manchester United might be interested. Napoli might be. Arsenal might be. We are apparently. We're not going to get into that. We're going to talk about his counterpart, Celik, instead. Plays right back. I don't know anything about him, so I'm going to let Jeremy do all the talking here. I've never heard of him basically until we were linked with him. So just to start off, what would you say kind of some of his kind of key attributes are? Is he more like defensively aware right back? Does he prefer to get up and down? Kind of a couple of like defining characteristics for him.
Yeah, I mean he's a sort of modern fullback, modern right back in that he's got a good command of the whole of the right flank. Really willing to push up and support the attack. Decent cross on him, but I'm sort of generally a little bit down on modern fullbacks because they seem to be better at attacking than defending. But he's got a really strong defensive side to him as well. So really can do a bit of everything. I mean, you've had your experience of Sidibe last season, who for me is a decent fullback going forward, but I've never been convinced about him as a defender.
I don't think any of us were convinced about it defensively, to be fair.
But yeah, Celik for me is definitely a stronger defender than him. He's been at Lille a couple of years now. He's still only 23, so still room for improvement, but already pretty complete player, I think.
Yeah, and that's definitely very important for us at the moment because we've had our time of signing, kind of players coming towards the end of their careers. We've had time signing very young players who need more time to develop. But clearly, he's already quite good defensively, which is obviously going to be very important going forwards for us. And kind of, you described him there as a modern fullback. Now, Ancelotti's known to be quite flexible with his tactics. He can play kind of a 4-4-2. He can play a 4-2-3-1. What system would you say kind of suits him best? Because when we play the 4-4-2, the wing backs almost, that's what they become basically, because it comes like a 5 at the back basically, and they're expected to get forwards a lot more. Or would you say maybe a 4-2-3-1 where he can highlight his defensive ability more than going forward?
I mean, he's definitely used to playing in a flat back 4, but he has filled in a couple of times, sort of pushing up further, sort of right midfield. So whatever the formation, he's if there's an expectation on him to sort of be overlapping with midfielders, then he's very comfortable doing that. And even if you were to occasionally play with a back 3 or a back 5, he could play that wing back role quite easily. Yeah,
because also when Sidibe was here, I mean, there's a lot of mixed reactions on him basically because he was all right going forwards, but he had very much on and off games. He could tell he didn't really handle the defensive kind of aspect of English football very well. I'm sure people might be concerned with Celik like that, but by the sounds of it, he is much more defensively aware because when we were in kind of the 5 at the back system and Sidibe was asked to get further forwards, that's probably when we saw him at his best, to be honest, or if he was at right midfield in a 4-4-2. But I think we're definitely looking for a right back that's kind of going to be much more defensively astute anyway, because I think we're all a bit done with Sidibe. And by the sounds of it, is almost like a Coleman role. Coleman was very much a modern fullback kind of when he was at the peak of his career. Obviously, he's coming to the end of it now, but could you make comparisons there? Because he's definitely, Coleman himself has become much more defensively able, which I'm not sure many people expected his kind of like development to turn into. He definitely used to be much more going forwards, but could he probably compare those two in kind of that modern fullback role?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with Sidibe, I don't think it's just Premier League football. He was like in France as well. He was kind of lucky that his one really stellar season was when he was playing for an amazingly attacking Monaco side and didn't need to do too much defending, or when he mucked up, it didn't matter because they were going to outscore the other team anyway. But yeah, Celik for me is like a Coleman, like a Dean. I'd say Baines sort of maybe just because he's that that few years older is more kind of traditional defence first and then attack. But yeah, I would say that Celik is one of those who, like I said, is expected, I think, to support the attack. You know, it's not like a lot of defenders in the olden days where or certainly fullbacks where you'd rarely see them cross the halfway line. He's always going to be up there supporting attackers. You know, he combined a lot last year with Victor Osimhen, who's obviously left Lille now, but had a fantastic season. And you know, as much as the other attackers, Celik was providing service to Osimhen as well. But like I said, he doesn't forget the defensive side too. I mean, certainly from all I've heard from Everton fans, Dean is definitely better respected than Sidibe, for example. So I think that's probably a better comparison to make.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, Ancelotti likes it's almost a necessity of an Ancelotti fullback now. They have to be able to do both, and they have to be quite tactically flexible. But something I want to ask you about, because I'm not too sure about this. When we do play kind of three at the back, sometimes Coleman is almost asked to kind of tuck in as a third centre half, and we put like a right midfielder out wide, and it becomes Digne and a right midfielder going forwards. Would that role like at all suit Celik, or does he much prefer to just get forwards? Because Coleman's adapted to the role very well, I think. I mean, much mixed opinions on Coleman as well, to be fair, in the fan base, but he has become much more defensively aware, and obviously he's told him you're going to have to fit into that third centre back more than a right back. Could that be a role that Celik could fit into, or?
Maybe with time. I wouldn't say he's ready for that yet. I mean, I think probably, you know, you expect from a centre back that one of their strengths, for example, is in the air. I'm not sure he's the best header of the ball. He's strong. You know, he's a good tackler, but I wouldn't say that he's got the sort of presence that you'd expect from a centre back. So it is something that he could sort of develop as his football intelligence grows. But I wouldn't be convinced about him in that role yet. Yeah,
definitely. And kind of there's a lot to be said these days about the fees that players teams obviously pay. I mean, Osimhen, I'm not sure what the final fee was, but that was ridiculously high. I think that was somewhere like 70 million or something like that.
I think it was something like 70 million euros plus 10 in bonuses.
Yeah, I mean, so clearly Lille are happy to negotiate. They're not just letting their players go for nothing. The rumoured fee, according to a bunch of different sources, but most recently Duncan Castles, he claims Everton have proposed 50 million euros. Obviously, we don't know if any of this is true. This is all just speculation. Lille want a rumoured to want around 20 million euros, but obviously we'll see how that develops. Would you say like those fees are good value for money? Is it a bit over? Is it a bit under? What would you kind of expect them to be worth in this market, especially? Bear in mind, everyone's kind of got less money after what's happened.
That's the thing. It's really hard to say just because the market's bizarre at the moment anyway, and especially obviously this summer. Lille are tough negotiators. You look at, like you said, Osimhen this year, Pepe last year as well. You know, they're it's strange because they do seem to constantly have financial issues, and there's the sort of ombudsman or whatever you want to call it in France often sort of give Lille a hard time, which is weird considering these huge amounts of money they're bringing in. But with Osimhen going for 80 million, probably Gabriel obviously for a decent amount as well. There's certain players who Lille have kind of said, look, if we get the right offer, we will let them go, but it's not necessarily a priority for them. And I think Celik probably falls into that category. For me, in today's market, and obviously rightly or wrongly, fullbacks are probably among the sort of least valuable players, but there aren't that many top ones around at the moment. I think 15 million is more than decent. 20 million as well. I don't think it's a bad deal at all. I think it's taken French clubs a while. For a long time, I think they let players go a little bit too cheaply to the Premier League. I think now they realise that it is reasonable to charge a bit of a premium when a Premier League team is interested. So, yeah, I could see them holding out for about 20 million. But French clubs do like the sort of, you know, the add-ons, the bonuses. So maybe something around 18 with sort of up to 2, 3, 4 in bonuses, depending on appearances, and maybe even, you know, more international appearances, that kind of thing. I think there's definitely a deal to be done.
Well, and that's definitely good to hear, because there's our transfer policy for a while has obviously been quite poor. We overspend on some players, so it's good to hear we wouldn't be necessarily overspend on them. But obviously, we've seen a lot of actually Turkish players kind of come from Turkey, not really adapt well to kind of the top five European leagues necessarily. He's done well in Liga, and now he's played the majority of their games, I think. So he's done well adapting to that. Can you see him again adapting well to the Premier League? Or because we've seen time and time again, players come from Liga and players come from places like the Netherlands. It's a completely different climate of football a lot of the time. Can you see him like adapting quite quickly, adapting well to the league, or is this going to be one where it might be, the fee is going to be lower because he might not, be able to adapt necessarily? But if he sounds like quite a physical player, it sounds like he might adapt well. But kind of, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't think there's an issue in terms of the physicality. The one thing that I think he may need a little bit of adjustment to is that Premier League's a little bit more intensity, is a bit more sort of non-stop. So, in terms of running up and down the flank, he's probably going to need a little bit of adjustment to that. But again, if he calls on Sidibe, if he calls on Dean for advice, they're two. Funnily enough, they're two ex-Lille players as well. But they're players who obviously have got a lot of experience of Ligue 1, so can really help him out with whatever it is, even like off pitch fitness or how to sort of pace himself to make sure that you get the best out of him. I think sometimes there is a little bit of impatience, which isn't always fair when players come from a different league, not necessarily only the French league, but a few of them. Pepe, again, just because of the Lille connection, I'm just picking on him, but some Arsenal fans are saying his stats are great. Others are saying 480 million, we expect a lot more immediately from him, and I think it's a little bit unfair. There's always going to be an adjustment period. There's different demands in France. I think attackers are not expected to sort of have defensive responsibilities as much as here, that kind of thing. And I just think one of the big differences is that in England it is really non-stop. You don't get any kind of breather, and especially when you're in a position where you're supposed to be defending and attacking, that's the bit that I think he'll need a little bit of time to adjust to. But I definitely think he's got the engine and the ability to do that.
Yeah, and then kind of just to round off here, because at the end of the day, this is all still speculation. I think we can probably gather that we are interested. I think we can gather that Spurs are also interested. I think Mourinho's kind of targeted him to potentially replace Aurier. He hasn't done badly, but he just has the occasional defensive howler, which has cost them a lot of points, to be fair. So, and obviously, Spurs and Everton have already been kind of embroiled in a saga already this year with Højbjerg this window, and then he looks like he's decided to go to Spurs. Do you think this is a realistic transfer for Everton? Do you think would he be more likely to choose kind of Everton, where he'd probably start straight away? Would he go to Spurs, where he might struggle? Obviously, he might not be asked to go forward as much as Spurs. Obviously, Mourinho is seen as a more defensive manager, but kind of which one do you see as like the more likely transfer?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think Spurs have got a little bit of an advantage in that a couple of their coaching staff were poached from Lille. So, if Celik sort of got on well with them, they could have a big influence in persuading him to go there. But then at the same time, I'm not. First of all, you've got Ancelotti now, who I think is a huge draw for any player. So I think that evens things out a lot. And although Spurs on paper are sort of, just have been in Europe or are going to be in Europe this year as well, that could well be a factor. But if he pays any kind of attention to what's going on, and I don't think all is well at Spurs. I think most people would be surprised if Mourinho is still there this time next year. Celik, there's no reason why he should have any kind of relationship with Ndombele, but if he does, I doubt that he's going to be sort of selling Spurs, or certainly not Mourinho, to him. So I do think Everton have got a reasonable chance, but just because of Europe and because of that Lille coaching connection, I'd say maybe Spurs have got a little bit of an advantage at the moment.
Yeah, so I mean, thank you very much for that. Obviously, Jeremy can give a lot better insight than I ever could into a player I've never really seen. I've never seen play literally at all before. So thank you very much for coming on. That was was a really good analysis. And obviously, I hope we can pull this transfer off. We desperately need a right back. Whether it's one of our highest priorities, I mean, we'll leave everyone else to debate that. This isn't a transfer show. This is purely just to take a look. So thank you all very much for watching as well. Be sure to check out Jeremy's social media, which will be just below his face. When we come to edit it, it'll be in the description as well. Check out all of our social media as well. And Jeremy, thank you very much for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so join us next time on the Toffee Blues. Obviously, we've got tons of videos coming up at the moment. We've got 24/7 videos where we talk about these transfer rumours every day. I'm sure we'll bring you much more analysis about potential targets as well. So thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.